kind of woman who commanded admiration wherever she went. In heart, she was known as the light of Umuagu village. She had been married to Chike for 10 years. Together, they had built a beautiful life farm and 2 children, 7-year-old Ifini and 5-year-old Amora. Their home was always filled with laughter. Chike would often return from the farm, hoisting Ifini onto his shoulders and spinning Amora in circles until she squealed with joy. Ada would watch from the veranda, her heart swelling with pride. Life was not just good, it was perfect. But fate had other plans. One fateful market day, Chike's cart overturned on a treacherous road near the riverbank. The news came as a whisper at first, then a wail that spread through the village like wildfire. Ada dropped the basket of yams she was carrying when a neighbor, her face pale and voice trembling, delivered the devastating news. "Chike, he's gone," the woman said softly. Ada's legs gave way, and she crumpled to the ground. Her world shattered in an instant. The days following the accident were a blur. Ada barely ate or slept, her heart heavy with grief. She clung to her children, who were too young to fully understand the weight of their loss. Ifini asked once, his small face serious, "Ma, when is Papa coming back?" Ada could only hold him tightly, her tears soaking his shirt. But mourning in Umuagu village came with its own challenges, especially for a widow. Among the mourners who filled the compound in the days after Chike's burial, Ada noticed the calculating eyes of her in-laws. Obiora, Chike's eldest brother, stood out the most. His sharp features and perpetual scowl gave him an air of menace. Ada had always found him intimidating, but she had no idea how much trouble he would bring into her life. One evening, barely a week after, Obiora gathered the family elders' compound. Ada was summoned to her heart pounding as she sat on a low stool. The air was thick with tension. Obiora cleared his throat. "Ada," he began, his tone laced with feigned sympathy. "We understand your pain. Chike was our brother, and we grieve with you." Ada nodded cautiously, her instincts warning her to brace for what was coming. "But," Obiora continued, "you must understand that in our tradition, a woman does not own her husband's property. The land, the house, even the farm, all of it belongs to the family now." Ada's breath caught in her throat. "What are you saying, Obiora?" "I'm saying," he replied, his voice cold and firm, "you don't belong here anymore. Stay with your mother in Amigbu village. We will take care of everything here." The words hit Ada like a physical blow. She looked around, hoping for someone to defend her. But the elders avoided her gaze, their silence a confirmation of Obiora's claim. "This is my home," Ada said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Chike and I built this life together. I have nowhere else to go." Obiora's sneer deepened. "It is not about what you built, woman. It is about tradition. Do not embarrass yourself by resisting." Ada's heart sank, but she refused to cry in front of them. She thought of her children, of Ifini's curious eyes and Amora's innocent smile. They needed her to be strong. She stood, her hands trembling but her chin high. "I may be a widow, but I am still a mother. And I will not abandon my children to your mercy. If you want this property, you will have to take it by force." Obiora's eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a cruel smile. "Don't worry, Ada," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "We will." That night, Ada sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her sleeping children. The moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating their peaceful faces. She knew the battle ahead would be fierce, but she vowed to protect them at all costs. "Chike," she whispered into the still night, "I don't know if I have the strength to face this. But for our children, I will fight. I will fight for what is rightfully ours." The storm had arrived, and Ada braced herself for the battles to come. The morning started with an unsettling stillness. Adeobi Ada Okafor had barely slept the night before. Her mind raced with thoughts of how to protect her children, Ifini and Amora, as well as the life she and her late husband, Chike, had built together. She had hoped, naively, that her in-laws would relent, that the elders would show compassion. But when she heard the shouts and the stomping of feet outside her compound, she realized her worst fears were coming true. "Open this door, Ada!" Obayora's deep voice boomed from outside. Ada clutched her sleeping children close to her chest. She whispered a prayer under her breath, her heart pounding like a drum. "Stay here," she instructed the children, pulling a thin shawl over her shoulders. When she opened the door, she was met with a hostile crowd. Obayora stood at the front, flanked by his two younger brothers, Emeka and Tochukwu. Behind the elders, their faces stern and unreadable. A few curious neighbors had gathered at a distance, whispering among themselves. "Ada," Obayora began, his tone devoid of any warmth. "We gave you a chance to leave peacefully, but you have chosen to be stubborn." "I am not being stubborn, Obayora," Ada said, her voice shaking but firm. "This is my home. Chike and I built this. My children and I have nowhere else to go." Obayora's lips curled into a sneer. "You are a woman. Women do not inherit property in our family. This house, the land, the farm, it all belongs to us now." One of the elders, a wiry man named Pa Nadi, stepped forward. "Ada," he said, his tone heavy with condescension, "it is our custom. A widow cannot claim her husband's property. You must respect the traditions of our people." Ada's eyes darted to Ngozi, Chike's elder sister, who stood slightly apart from the group. If anyone could speak on her behalf, it was Ngozi, who had once shared a close bond with her. Ada folded her hands in a pleading gesture. "Ngozi," she said, her voice cracking, "you know how much Chike loved his children. He would never want them to suffer. Please, help me. Speak for me." Ngozi met her gaze, and for a fleeting moment, Ada thought she saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But it disappeared as quickly as it came. "Women don't inherit in this family," Ngozi said coldly. "You should leave before things get worse." Ada's heart shattered. She realized then that she was truly alone in this fight. Before she could respond, Obayora barked an order, "Brothers, clear her things out." "No!" Ada screamed, rushing to block the door. But it was no use. Emeka and Tochukwu pushed past her, entering the house like a pair of wild dogs. They began tossing out her belongings, clothes, pots, and even the children's books. Amora and Ifini, awakened by the commotion, appeared in the doorway, their faces pale with fear. "Mama, what's happening?" Ifini asked, his voice trembling. "It's okay, my son," Ada said, kneeling to her. But her words felt hollow even to her own ears. Neighbors watched silently, some shaking their heads in disapproval but too afraid to intervene. A few women whispered among themselves. "Poor Ada. She doesn't deserve this. But what can she do? Tradition is tradition." By midday, the house was stripped of all semblings were piled haphazardly outside the compound. Obayora stood in the center of the chaos, his arms crossed, looking. "Still here by nightfall, will make you regret it." Ada wanted to scream, to fight, to make them understand the cruelty of their actions. But she knew she couldn't risk escalating the situation. She gathered her scattered belongings and placed them into a battered wheelbarrow lent to her by a sympathetic neighbor. She draped them from the scorching sun and began the long,